Kenyan President William Ruto on Tuesday said criminals would be held to account after a second week of protests against his government and the rising cost of living.
Those involved in criminal activity, including the invasions, will be brought to book.
Religious leaders and human rights groups called for calm amid the protests, now in their second week. They are being led by opposition leader Raila Odinga, who has called for rallies every Monday and Thursday to pressure Ruto's government into action. On Monday, police fired tear gas and water cannons at stone-throwing Odinga supporters. And Kenyan media reported that a property belonging to Odinga's family and then another belonging to former President Uhuru Kenyatta was vandalized. Late on Monday night, unknown perpetrators set fire to a church and several businesses in Nairobi's low-income Kibera district. A mosque was also damaged. This pile of smoking debris used to be Joseph Maloba's tire shop. It was one of many businesses and homes destroyed on Monday night.
This is a very big loss. I don't know how I'll recover it. I don't know where I'll start from. I totally don't know what I'll do.
The damage to businesses could present a challenge to the government's efforts to rebuild a hard-hit economy. Each day of the protest has cost the country about $23 million, said the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Odinga has denied Ruto's claims that he is trying to stir up chaos in a country with a history of political and ethnic violence, often around elections. Odinga said the protests would continue until Ruto addressed the high cost of living in Kenya.
Violence returns to the streets of Nairobi with a new wave of protests against the government. The unrest has centered in Nairobi's impoverished areas of Kibera and Mathare. Police used tear gas and water cannon to push back against the crowds. Protesters chanted slogans against the government, denouncing the rising cost of living. They demanded the resignation of William Ruto, whose election as president they say is illegal.
We want the price of cooking flour to go down. Ruto has been unable to reduce the price of maize flour, so we want Ruto to step down.
So people are looking at just the basic needs, the basic life every day. And of course, when you have the cost of fuel, the cost of power, everything else is affected, including rent, including basic life. So everyone feels like we have had a new government that had promised so much, yet we still are seeing that there is no improvement in the cost of living. If anything, there's constant raise and an announcement that is everything is going to be raising, in a given percentage, and people feel frustrated.
Police said the protest was unauthorized and illegal. They warned local media against broadcasting it. More than a dozen civil society groups issued a joint statement expressing concern over what they described as a suppression of people's constitutional right to peaceful demonstration. Protesters say this is just the beginning. Opposition parties say they are preparing to widen and intensify demonstrations. Mohammed Val, Al Jazeera.
The protests had been declared illegal by Kenya's Inspector General of Police on Sunday, but on Monday, the protesters took to the streets of Nairobi and several other towns. Police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse them. Attempts by police to stop opposition chief Raila Odinga's convoy passing through some low-income neighborhoods in the Kenyan capital proved futile, as the large crowd marching alongside him pushed past police lines. Major transport arteries in sections of the city were blocked by protesters who engaged security forces in running battles. Several bonfires have been lit along this road, with the police now engaging the protesters on two particular fronts. Behind me and just behind my cameraman. At this particular moment, they're using tear gas and water cannons to move the crowd behind. But the protesters would not relent. They taunted the police officers and pelted them with stones. And now what you're seeing is it appears that the police are now charging forward towards the crowd. There's a lot of tear gas behind there. We're just going to try and get a little closer to find out exactly what is going on. The charge was short-lived, with protesters forcing the police back with stones. Some protesters have blamed the police for the deteriorating situation.
We were protesting in peace. On reaching here, the police started throwing tear gas at us.
The police should leave us alone. We are minding our business.
The opposition is demanding that the government takes action to lower the high cost of living and says it will hold another protest rally on Thursday. The government has criticized the opposition for calling for the demos and says the protests are illegal. But it's the economy, already weighed down by the pandemic and debt repayments, that's bearing the impact of the protests, as many businesses remained shut as the protests went on during the day. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
We have had cars vandalized, we've had people robbed, even journalists were attacked today. And some of those people who are conducting or carrying out these attacks were people demonstrating in your name. Do you take your responsibility for those attacks?
No, not at all. What happened today? Today was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration. Our Constitution under Article 1 says that the power in the Republic of Kenya, sovereignty that is in the hands of the people of Kenya. They can either exercise it directly or through their elected leaders. So we were actually invoking that article in our Constitution, read together with Article 37 of our Constitution, which gives our people the right to picket, right to present petitions, right to demonstrate, so long as it is peaceful.
But there are those who will look at the pictures of protesters holding stones, hurling them in the direction of the police and even at some citizens. And then they'll say the Constitution provides for people who are peaceful and unarmed. Would you not say that you're stretching the meaning of peaceful demonstrations if we do see protesters carrying stones?
There's what is called offensive violence, and this is what is called defensive violence. The two are not the same. The police went and basically sealed the residences. People could not come out. They were throwing tear gas at the people within their compounds. So people therefore now came out to defend themselves. They wanted to get out. And that's why they were actually throwing stones at the police. So those two kinds of violence are not the same.
Do you see a situation where Raila Odinga and President William Ruto sit down at a table to talk this out instead of the chaos you're seeing on the streets?
I've said that there are conditions which must be fulfilled before we can have any meaningful discussions. Mr. Ruto must first respect multi-party democracy. Secondly, he must agree that the server will be opened so that we can examine what is in the server. Okay? Thirdly, he must stop the reconstitution, the Electoral Commission, before we can sit down and talk. And of course, finally, he must agree to address jointly with us the issue of the cost of living of our people.
The opposition leaders' mass protest continued this Monday after days of back and forth with the country's Inspector General. Despite a ban in place and a warning to not hold any demonstrations, Odinga and his supporters from different parts of the country came out to protest against the high cost of living. Odinga, his convoy and his supporters were fought by the police using water cannons and tear gas. In Raila's strongholds in Nairobi, his supporters were barricaded inside their neighborhoods. This is what they had to say.
But it was peaceful, but the policemen are making it turn like this. Like you see the tear gas and live bullets. It's not because Kenyans like war. We are just fighting for our rights.
Gachagua and Ruto are doing the wrong thing. Us as citizens, we have the right to talk, to demonstrate, and to raise the issues that are affecting us.
Baba should continue with what he's doing. We support him. We love him. We will always be supporting him. We'll never be supporters wake to the fullest, fully.
In the early hours of the protest, people who are alleged to be hired guns invaded the property of the immediate former president and a gas company belonging to the former prime minister. While addressing his supporters, Odinga called for a reduction of the cost of living and for access to the election servers. He also added that they will hold protests every Monday and Thursday until their demands are met.